All right, good morning, everyone. Oh, we're going to be here for a while because, good morning. All right, so I was nervous, right, following Prakash and Jimmy, but how inspirational were what we just heard around what they do. And now we're going to talk about big pharma, so you're going to hear about what we absolutely couldn't do, which are some of the things you guys just heard about. I am going to ask for a little bit of audience participation. How many people went to, that's my last slide. So if we go back to the first slide, then people would pay attention when we get to that last slide. How many people went to colleges that had 500 or fewer people? Anybody? All right, be proud of it, it's okay. 5,000 or fewer. And then greater than 5,000. Okay, so there were things that allowed us to be able to make that decision. I don't know how to get to the first slide, but somebody's gonna have to help me. There are things that allowed us to be able to make that decision around where we wanted to be and what we wanted to do to be able to get there. Yet here we all are today with some commonalities. We're going to come back to that in a second. I didn't ask you when you went to school, but you may remember this depending on where you were in the mid-'70s. It's our first case study in competition, right? It was Betamax versus VHS. All right, some people are like, where are we going with this, right? Because which one was the better technology? Betamax. Which one won? And why did they win? Because they collaborated to understand what the market really needed, right? Things that my kids wouldn't understand now, right? They had a format that you could put 2 hours on a movie. We watched them. We couldn't find a 2-hour movie last week. We were trying to find one. Everything's 140 minutes or 100. But what the market wanted, one technology, which wasn't technologically the better technology, worked collaboratively to be able to find out and understand. So why are we not surprised that we need to continue to be able to do that? But there were strengths that Sony had that it brought to a particular product, but it stopped short of understanding what it really required for that product to be able to become adopted, that JVC did. So when we look at the landscape today, where are there some of those similarities, right? Well, the challenges are ones that we've been talking about for a while. We all know in assessing the relevance, the lack of knowledge or training that is there, whether the diagnostic systems are actually there, or access, right, which is a great question. When I came into this field about a year ago, and if I had a nickel for each time I heard the sustainability of the rare disease model, I probably wouldn't need to be working, right? But the question is, for what it takes to get products to patients, how does that fit within different business models? And then there are different companies that have different business models. And so we have competing objectives, but we're supposed to be on the same team. So where do the opportunities come in? The opportunities are to help stimulate that, right? The legislative opportunities. A third of new drug approvals last year were for orphan drugs. The importance of a strong patient community, right? You look at Rare Disease Day, becomes a great example, right? So I had this orange tie beforehand. You see a lot of orange that's around, but that was a collaboration that's been done between Nord and Novartis and others. And it's empowering and educating and informing individuals as to what needs to be able to change. And numbers of cross-stakeholder collaborations that I would go into, but I'm going to help Chris get us caught up on time here. So there are many stakeholders. They each have goals that intrinsically all make sense. But sometimes they pull from each other, right? A healthcare system who's designed to deliver the most good to the most people. Okay, well, the way I can deliver the most good for the most people is to be able to give it to everybody for nothing, because then everybody gets the good, but then that doesn't work with generating new innovation incentive that helps you be able to bring products. And different companies have different strengths to be able to bring those products. So how do we work together to be able to look at those common goals? Sometimes it's about understanding what it is that we're good at. Okay, next question. Star Trek, how many Trekkies do we have? I need a show of hands because my boss wanted to know how many people that we have that are like that, right? So when you think about the concept of what Star Trek was, it was as cross-functional a team as you could possibly put together on a common mission about going somewhere boldly that no man has gone before. How many parallels are there to this that are in this room? Looking to get to spaces, looking to understand things that aren't being looked at, can't be looked at. But what did it require? It required for that crew of the Starship Enterprise right? The ability for everybody to go, I know what I do really well. I know what that person does really well, and I'm going to commit to bring what I do really well to help us be able to achieve that goal. And so when they got to a new situation, which they had never seen before, because we all watched every week, right? It was like, who's going on the transporter, right? Because Kirk got to decide who gets to go on the transporter. But what did he do? He looked at the talent that he had around him, the problem that was in front of him, and was able to pick and choose from that to be able to go, this is what I think requires success in this particular situation. You guys could almost finish my talk. So, yes, collaboration is key to fostering innovation. And the broader the community, the broader the strengths, the better that innovation is going to be. You saw it in the slides from Prakash and Jimmy beforehand, right? That's actually what it's going to require. So what can big pharma be able to bring to that ecosystem, right? So my short version is I graduated with 33 kids in my high school. I went to a small undergraduate school on purpose because I didn't want to go to a large company or a large school because I never learned in that environment. I went to work for J&J with a company that started at $100 million as a company. 2 years later, had a $100 million product. 5 years later, it was $3.5 billion. I went to Wyeth. Wyeth got acquired. Now I work for the world's largest biotechnology company. I didn't plan this. But along the way, I saw strengths at many different types of organizations. It's not right or wrong. It's what's different. So the question about what big pharma, why should they be involved, what should they bring, should play to what do they do really well? What can they do differently? What can they do better? And that should create a space where big pharma should be able to help accelerate different things. And this is what they are, right? And it's not just resources. I actually hate that answer because it's about expertise that you can generate into a specific area, whether they're primarily research, clinical, commercialization, the range of platforms. But one of the ones that I think may be most important is the ability to do numbers of things well. Not because you're so big, but because you've got individuals who do things well, who are all in the same place, which is what you try to get to in external collaboration. So the ability to become synergistic with internal collaborations externally makes big pharma a good partner for certain things and not for others. So what are some of the examples of having this different thought process, right? I'm glad that the presenters went before me because they actually said everything that's already on the slide, right? So Sanofi, I think Krista, when Wyeth got acquired by Pfizer, there's some former colleagues that are in here, guess what the very first question on the Q&A was? Like on day 2. The name of the new company will be called Pfizer. It was clear, like all the jokes about it's going to be Wi-Fi or other things like that, they all went away. Like the first and most important thing that everybody needed to know on that day is your name is Pfizer. And how much different did Sanofi approach that? They recognized the strengths that Genzyme had. They recognized the differentiation that they had, right? And they left it alone. It's a case study in understanding what's different. Lilly's new partnership with the NIH in the TREND program, right, for hyperparathyroidism, I get to keep practicing saying that, is a great example of new collaborations that are there as people think differently about what success is actually going to be able to require. And so here's some of the things that we're doing differently. It's things that you might expect as far as unique and novel partnerships that we're trying to go end to end. We've got colleagues that are here. We've got new competencies we're looking to develop in what we call patient engagement. Right? They're not new to the industry. They're not new to many folks that are here, but they're new ways of thinking that we're being successful internally in understanding where we want to be able to engage in not just patient groups and advocacy groups, but all groups along the drug development process. It's not something that we've done in the past. How we access the extensive knowledge, as we've heard about today, all of the experience, even in areas that we prioritize, doesn't exist within our four walls. We have the benefit of depth, right? But depth doesn't mean all the breadth in the world. So how do you partner collaboratively to be able to access that? And then where do you engage? Where do you take the expertise that you may have institutionally and have a seat at the table? And we've got some great examples of things we're doing in Europe and some of the working groups that we participate in to be parts of the conversation to help shape policy and help shape the way that we can look to not just develop, but deliver assets and products to the patients who need them. So here are the therapeutic areas that we are particularly focused in. Our particular focus here is because it's where our scientific expertise is. We look for especially early research collaborations in other areas, and these are the areas that we've selected to focus in. If you think about it, like the Starship Enterprise, this is what we're really good at. And when we're not good at it, we look to be able to foster partnerships in other places because the goal is the same. So who are we? The Starship Enterprise had over 400. At our last count, we had over 600 individuals. That's a lot of expertise. It's in a lot of different areas. But the commonality, much like the commonalities for many of the folks in the room who may not are just meeting each other, is a passion to be able to do what they do, to be able to deliver that for patients who are in need. We chose our undergraduate schools for very different reasons. There were priorities that were important to us. We've chosen the paths that we work in now for different reasons. The goals, though, of what bring us to meetings like this and help us leave these are the same. And so we believe it's time for different conversations, not about this versus that, but about understanding what are you good at, what are you great at, and what can you help us be great at to meet the end goal of delivering products to patients. And so that path to success, now you've seen the last slide twice, requires us really to come together. So it's why we're here, and what we're looking forward to do is to sit down and have sometimes the tough conversations. Some of the conversations are not easy about how do you get access to patients? What does the cost of this manufacture? If you look at the questions that are being asked, as a finance guy where I started, they're not surprising. It's just a timing issue before these questions get asked. We have to sit down and have the conversations that have put us in the Sony versus VHS world, as opposed to understanding what do we need to do to get the most collective good. So we look forward to the conversations this afternoon. My colleagues Beth White and Don Hahn are going to lead a roundtable on the value proposition of rare disease medicines for all stakeholders. So we'd encourage you guys to be able to attend there, and I'll look forward to meeting many of you over the course of the next few days. Thank you very much.